Thank you. So good afternoon, Chairman. I can confirm it is now just after 4 o'clock. The live stream has commenced and we are ready to start the meeting.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Development Control Committee meeting of the 15th of July 2020. I would like to advise that today we will be using Zoom again to provide a live stream to members of the public. Please can we ask that you bear with us as we are dealing with numerous internet connections and sometimes this can cause a slight delay.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that today we have Councillor Graham Carpenter acting as substitute for Councillor Lawn. Sammy Wintle will be your Zoom host for today, and Dean Mims, Chris Green and Rob Tate will be the officers presenting during the meeting. Matt Seven is here to offer IT support if required, and Sammy Wintle will be clerking the meeting today. During the meeting, all participants, except for the chairman, will be muted, and this should remain during the whole of the meeting unless you have asked to speak. May I take this opportunity to remind members that all members are invited to participate in the meeting, but would ask that you use the raise hand button, which can be found at the bottom of the participant screen, should you wish to speak on any matter. The chairman will be notified of your request and he will then invite you to speak. Once you have been called to speak, please could we ask you to unmute yourself and then once spoken, mute yourself again. Anyone who has telephoned into the meeting will be invited to speak after all those that have raised their hands have spoken. When asking a question, please could we ask members to refer to page numbers within the report or agenda for ease to officers. If we have to adjourn the meeting, the chairman will advise of this and the anticipated length of adjournment. When voting on an application, this will be undertaken by a roll call of those members present. Once your name is called, please unmute yourself and respond accordingly. When confirming the minutes and noting delegated and appeal decisions, unless any member raises any objection on these matters, these will be confirmed by assent. Members can only partake in voting on an application if they have been present for the entire discussion on the application. As there are a number of applications on today's agenda, at the end of each application, we will allow a brief comfort break for members, officers and attendees of the meeting if required. Please can I ask that you let me know if you need to have that comfort break, because the live stream will stay live streaming, but we will just pause for a short moment. Thank you, Chair. If we could now undertake a roll call of members present. If I could ask members just to say present for me, please. Councillor Annison.
Present.
Councillor Bird. Councillor Fairhead.
Present.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Freeman.
Present.
Councillor Carpenter.
Present.
Councillor Hammond.
Present.
Councillor Mogford.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Myers.
Present.
Councillor Wainwright.
Present.
Councillor Williamson.
Present.
Councillor T. Wright.
Present.
And Councillor B. Wright.
Present.
Thank you. Thank you. Chairman, I can advise that officers present at the meeting today, we have Caroline Watling, Monitoring Officer, Dean Mims, Planning Manager, Rob Tate, Planning Officer, Chris Green, Planning Officer, and Sammy Wintle, Corporate Services Manager. Chairman, I can confirm that we have external participants who have joined the meeting today to discuss planning applications to be considered by members. Any external attendees will be called forward to speak at the appropriate time and will remain as attendees during the meeting. External attendees are only to speak when called forward, and to confirm there will be no entitlement for any external questions. Chairman, we can now start the agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. So we move to item number 1. Have we any apologies for absence, please?
Chairman, I can confirm we have apologies from Councillor Lawn today.
Thank you. Item number 2, any declarations of interest, please, from anyone? If they raise a hand.
Chairman, I can confirm I have no hands raised.
Okay, so we move to item number 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of June 2020 as a true and accurate record. Everybody happy with those minutes?
Chairman, I can confirm I have no hands raised and no objections. Oh, sorry, I have a, oh, Councillor Wright, did you have a question or did you just accidentally raise your hand?
Sammy, I was present at the last meeting. You haven't got me down as being attending.
Yeah, thank you. I did notice that this morning. I will amend that. Thank you.
Okay.
Chairman, other than that, that will be noted. I have no other hands raised, so they can be taken on assent.
Okay, thanks, Sammy. So we move to item number 4, was application for the Wild Duck Caravan Park, Howard's Common, Belton, pages 11 to 25 of your agenda. And to present this is Planning Officer, Mr. Chris Green. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, you just need to unmute yourself. We just can't hear you.
So we've just got a technical hitch here at the moment.
Dean, if we can't get it resolved to share the screen, does Chris just want to start talking through the application? Oh, there we go.
I'm ready to go.
Yep, we can see it now.
Oh, what's it doing now? Right, okay. I think we're there. Hello, can everyone
Yep,
hear me?
Chris, we can hear you. Yep, and we can see your screen.
You can, that's good. I'm sorry about this. It's the first time I've tried to do it with your equipment. Okay, to commence, Wild Duck Caravan Park application. It's important to realise that this is a 3-part application, and I'll run through them because I haven't referred to the colours of areas in the report by the colours. So it's probably the first time you're seeing the colours. Move forward a little bit, okay. We have a dark blue area at the northwest of the site, which is currently in use for touring caravans. And the proposal on that section of the site is to put 50 static caravans in amongst the trees and to retain 10 safari tents that are already on the site. Then the second area is a portion of the existing golf course that's owned by Caldecott Hall, where Wild Duck have done a deal with Caldecott Hall to allow them to place their touring caravans transposed from the dark blue site onto the purple site. And then finally, moving along, what you can see running through the center of the picture in a roughly east-west direction, there's a public right-of-way, and that off that you'll see there's a track leading into an orange section, which is a county wildlife site, where it proposed to add to open up part of the county wildlife site to create a fairway and golf course hole. I'll just move on. So that's an aerial view. Sorry?
You can't actually see your screen.
You can't see the screen. Oh, for goodness sake.
We can see the screen. We can see the screen.
Just trying to get them marked out for them.
Oh, I see. I see. Oh dear.
I think it's that one.
Okay.
No, if you go.
Back to
Yeah.
back to that.
Yeah, should be right there.
What's it done? Right, okay. Aerial view. Yes, I've only marked on the golf course. Now, why I can't see the one on the big screen, only on the little one.
We can only see the
Okay, fair enough. So moving on a little bit further, this is an overall site plan where they've taken some Google Earth shot of the entire Caldecott Hall golf course and superimposed on it an existing fairway. And you can also see where the new fairway cuts into part of the county wildlife site and where there is to be a new tee. And apparently, sorry, not tee, hole. And apparently, actually, this is a slightly inaccurate drawing insofar as the later one shows that the boundary planting actually remains around this hole, and people are expected to tee off and actually go over the trees, acting as a hazard to get into this hole. This drawing is an enlarged drawing of, let me just go back a second and show you the previous layer. You'll see that there's this point in the middle of the whole site where you've got the public right-of-way crossing the path of the old railway line, and also the access between the two sites, the proposed statics and the new proposed touring caravans. And they've done an enlarged detail of that for us in this illustration here. I think that's partly because there's been quite considerable concern raised over whether the right-of-way will be blocked in some way or difficult to navigate. And the idea is that they will put some gates on across the access into the touring site that can be shut to ensure that the public right-of-way is respected. And these will have to be opened and shut by persons travelling to and from the site. So the applicant has supplied relatively recently a complete set of plans for arboricultural works. And what we can see in this particular plan, which is the north section of the part of the site, the purple part, where the new static caravans are to go, is that they are sat amongst the existing trees and that no existing trees require felling. And I have a couple more images to go with that. That's the southern part of that same bit, and then there's just a tiny bit there that shows you the southeastern part. Oh, what's it gone? What's it done there? Sorry.
If you go, yeah.
I apologise for this. Okay, this is a drawing that was submitted by the applicant in connection with the arboricultural and wildlife preliminary environmental appraisal for the whole of the golf course, the county wildlife site, and the impacts upon it. What they've tried to do here is characterise the various areas of vegetation within that site, and you'll also notice my point I made about the new hole being essentially one having to project one's balls over tree hazards in order to get to it. So in other words, it doesn't require the removal of all the trees. In fact, the only trees that require removal are a small area here and here. The rest of the planting is relatively low lying, as they've shown. I'm afraid it didn't reproduce terribly well. So what I've tried to do is show alongside what we have, and you'll also notice there's an area of Japanese knotweed which clearly will be removed and dealt with as part of this process. So moving on to some of the site photographs, this is the entrance into the site from the original park. They blocked the access to stop, well, I don't know why they've blocked it to stop people, because there hasn't been anybody doing any holiday making at the moment with the COVID crisis. But anyway, that's one of the new static caravans that's parked across the access into the what will be the static site. That's the view along the former railway track bed, showing the fencing that's across it. And that's the view from the existing park, showing access onto the public right-of-way that they currently have, and across it at the point where the railway is. And essentially, this is what's being widened to make the access through into the touring caravan site on the part of the golf course. and that is the part of the golf course where the touring caravan site is to go. And again, a bit more of the same. And then this is a view along the public right-of-way at a point quite some distance to the east, where you start to come to the existing wild duck site on the right-hand side and the county wildlife site on the left-hand side. And then there's the track leading into the county wildlife site and to the scout hut, which you may have noticed mentioned on a couple of occasions. And there is the access down that track. Turn right, turn left, and you're into the scout hut and the field that's associated with that. Then we carry on forward a bit further, and we get into this area of relatively low planting, and scrub, gorse, and fern, which is a part of the county wildlife site at the end of that track. And there's been some fire recently where there's been a bit of burning of the gorse. That really characterises what the centre of the county wildlife site as it currently stands. So key points. I like to do this sort of thing with the slides. Obviously, we've got current policy which shows the wild duck as being a tourism accommodation site, and the whole of the Caldecott Hall site as being a tourism facility. And current policy is not specifically against the idea of tourism accommodation being placed on tourism facility sites. The emergent policy is slightly subtly different insofar as it doesn't actually show tourism facilities any longer. It just identifies accommodation sites and then makes some general policy comments about where one should place holiday accommodation. And one of the sort of prime findings, let's say, from that policy is that expansions onto sites adjacent to existing tourism sites are generally acceptable, subject to all the other criteria. Economic matters. There's, I suppose, they're not actually saying they're going to create any more jobs as a result of this, but there has to be an aspect of safeguarding, and of course, introducing 50 new static caravans into the mix does mean that there will be tourism spend as a result of that in the area. Landscape character and impact on the Broads area. The site is characterised as being a sandling, and it would remain reasonably open with regard to the placing of the touring caravans on the site, at least most of the year round. There is a small amenities block to go on there. They have assured me that it's single story, and indeed I put a condition in there that suggests it should be single story, but they haven't given me details yet. That's something they've asked to have as a matter to be discussed later. The real biggie for us was the habitat loss. I sort of looked at it and thought, oh, a county wildlife site. Well, obviously the county wildlife sites are at the lower order of designated sites. They're not recognised beyond the local level. But obviously they are still of some virtue, and so I was surprised that the Norfolk Wildlife Trust were relatively relaxed about its loss, providing, working with the golf club, Caldecott Hall, areas of Caldecott Hall which currently could do with improvement are improved to provide that mitigation. And so there is a condition recommended in there, what's known as a Grampian condition, where you say, you negatively word it to say that nothing shall happen until such time as, and in this instance it's that they come up with a proposal for the remediation of at least a hectare of land within Caldecott Hall site to offset the removal of the fairway area from the county wildlife site. Then there's the question of impact on neighbours. There are no real close proximate neighbours. The nearest, I think I said in the report, was somewhere around about 400 metres away from the nearest part of this, which is the county wildlife site part, where the disturbance would be really from people playing golf. And then, of course, the other thing to bear in mind with that is that the existing wild duck park has its own entertainment facilities on site, and there's no proposal to put new entertainment facilities on these bits of the site, either the purple or the blue area, or indeed the orange area. Then we come on to the other matter, which is impact on prospective public rights of way of part of the county wildlife site. There has been an objection and challenge made by a particular gentleman saying that people have used the county wildlife site for a very long period of time and that there are essentially established rights of way, not public rights of way. This is rather than private rights of way. Of course, you'll be aware that if you use land for a considerable period of time without anyone objecting to it, you can gain a covenant on that land under common law. It's not that. This is all about Public Rights of Way Act legislation. A report has been written with Norfolk examining the claim, but it has as yet not been put forward. So it's not material because it isn't in place yet. The applicant is very aware of it, and what it could do is constrain their ability to actually take an approval forward, because what they need to be sure of is that either the county decide that there is no right of way, or that they appeal any decision that there is a right of way through the courts, or that they accept that there's a right of way and they seek to have it diverted. They can do all of those things, but those are not material to us at present because they don't exist at present as constraints. So I certainly would find it very difficult to write a refusal reason around that sort of situation. Anyway, on to the recommendation. So I've said approve subject to the section 106 for the RAMs, and there is a matter that they are handing over parts of the county wildlife site from Caldicott Hall to the parish council, but I don't see that that is actually something that's necessary as a reason for allowing this development to occur. It's not linked to it, so it isn't absolutely necessary. They are going to do it anyway. They said they'll do it, but we wouldn't have to necessarily be a party to it. Then we have conditions for the surfacing over the public right of way, for general landscaping and for wildlife mitigation, including a landscape and environment management plan, which is something the Norfolk Wildlife Trust were very keen on. And then further details of the amenities block, lighting. The police have said they'd like to see some lighting, and of course others have said, well, hang on a second, over excessive lighting can be harmful to wildlife. But of course, there is a middle way whereby you have low-level lighting of a low order that doesn't disturb the wildlife and still manages to keep the site safe. I've suggested electric vehicle charging facilities, as we are likely to be moving into that area soon, archaeology conditions, and further details of the existing sewerage capacity or a package sewerage treatment plants, together with the means to prevent grease or oil contamination and details of ongoing maintenance. That's only if it turned out that the existing sewerage, which Anglian Water has said does have capacity, it turned out it didn't. I'm covering that point. And then the other condition I've suggested is that we need a specific condition to limit static caravan numbers to 50, because in my last post, I had a situation that arose where a lawful development certificate was done on a caravan site where, although they described it as being a certain number in the application, it later turned out that they could challenge that and they could stuff as many on there as they could get under the caravan site license. So it's always worth putting that onto any application of this sort. Thank you. I think that concludes the presentation I was going to give. I'm not sure how I get out of this.
Can you wiggle the mouse?
Wiggle my mouse.
You should be able to see stop screen share or something on the top.
Your screen sharing, stop share. Yes, okay, done it.
Okay, thanks, Chris, for that presentation. Are there any technical questions from members? If they'd like to raise their hand to Sammy, so you can speak, please.
Yeah. So, Chairman, I've got Councillor Bird who's joined the meeting. I will promote him as a panelist, but he won't be able to vote on this matter because he joined during the matter, but he has now joined the meeting. I have a question from Councillor T. Wright.
Councillor.
Yes, just in relation to the one of the conditions there, which says limited to holiday use. How many months of the year is this going to be open for? Because how can we restrict it to holiday use if a caravan owner wants to live there for, say, 6 or 7 months during the course of the year?
Am I muted? No, you can hear me, can you?
Yep.
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 Okay. We haven't sought to apply a closure period to this one. We have got the condition that says keep a logbook with demonstrably main postal address elsewhere. But the reason why we haven't asked for a closed period on this one is that the rest of the site doesn't have a closed period. So it would be odd to try and impose it upon a small part. We could do, but I think it might be subject to challenge because of the fact that there isn't one on the rest of the general site.
But surely this is a new application for 50 extra static caravans. And I know that there's been problems in the past with other sites where people have used it as their second home, or as a matter of fact, it's become their first home. And I know that's been challenged on one site not too far away from this particular one. So I can see that that's going to be a problem. And I don't accept the view that we can't put a restriction on it in terms of this, because it is a new application. There are 50 static caravans on here, and I just think that could be one of the issues. The other issue that I wanted to raise is in relation to the new touring site. I know it mentions about the toilet.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah.
Councillor Wright, is this a technical question or a statement?
No, this is a question to the officer.
All right, if you can just ask a question and then we'll come to that section in a little while, yeah?
What I'm saying is about, what I'm saying is I'm just asking a question about what is there being put in place for the new shower and toilet facilities on the actual site itself. This is for the touring site.
Correct. Can you hear me? You can.
Yep.
Yeah. As I say, they've said they will provide us with further details of that by way of condition, and it will be single story. Beyond that, they've shown a footprint for it. I can't give you any further information at this stage.
Okay.
Did you wish me to go back on the dimensions?
On the 50, yeah, please.
On the matter of closure period.
Yes.
I mean, when we come to the next site, because that is a detached and separate matter, we have suggested a 1 month closure period. We could seek to apply it here, because after all, it's your decision as members as to how you would like to see conditions applied. I've reported recommended conditions to you, but if you chose, you could add a condition of that sort in. I suspect it might be subject to challenge, but I can't say that's going to be certain, and so it might be worth it. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Well, it is conditioned for that. Yeah, holiday use only, and yeah.
Question from Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'm just raising a point on page 15 of the 67, paragraph 511, which refers to the Norfolk Wildlife Trust. And in the last sentence, or the sentence before the end, it talks about the 1 hectare of additional space being allocated because of the loss of the old common land where the two fairways are to be constructed. I can see nowhere in the report where this 1 hectare is indicated where it will be developed and where it will be placed. I just want to have officers' opinion on that.
Yeah, yes, this again is the Grampian condition I was referring to. In other words, nothing can happen, or there's a recommended condition that nothing can happen on the county with regard to establishing the golf course alterations on it until this has been done. And they know they have to provide a hectare's worth and to show us demonstrably how they intend to improve it and in a manner that would be put through to the Wildlife Trust when they would agree or disagree with.
So this would be a condition,
yes,
placed on them before they could start development.
Well, it's a negatively worded condition with regard to the county wildlife site, but if you think about it, because the land is in the ownership of Caldecott Hall at the moment, they are not going to agree to them having the new touring site losing one of their golf holes until that's sorted out, because they need an 18-hole golf course.
Yes,
I don't think people play 17 or 16-hole golf.
I know the area very well.
Yeah. So I think it does offer that security in that sense.
I can't see where it's in the recommendation, though, because Caldecott Hall could walk away from that quite easily. But if it's not there, then the 1 extra hectare may never appear.
But the point is, it's existing land within the golf course, or at the fringes of the golf course, which are essentially fallow. And the idea that the Wildlife Trust have is that those areas be managed in a way to provide that compensating.
They were originally part of the common. They actually took part of the common to make the golf courses originally.
Yes.
So that could be designated as one wildlife area then. This is the point I'm getting at.
Yeah, it's up to us.
Otherwise, the management of Caldecott Hall could decide at any time to do what they wanted.
They would be bound by the landscape management plan that was put in place as part of that condition.
Right, so we can need that as part of the condition. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Myers.
Yeah, Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question. With the new tourers and the positioning of the new touring caravans, where will access to the touring site envisage it's going to be? And what is the impact on increase of traffic? Has any work been done on that?
Yes, the touring site is accessed at the point where the public right-of-way crosses the old railway alignment from the existing Wild Duck caravan site. So in other words, the main entrance to the Wild Duck caravan site is where vehicles would gain access to the public highway on Station Road. Now, as to whether the traffic flows on Station Road are as a result excessive, I mean, quite a lot of objectors say that they would be, but the county highways are accepting of the idea and feel that they wouldn't be.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost part of the last part of what you said because I've got an unstable internet.
Sorry, county highways have not objected to the proposal from the point of view of traffic levels being increased excessively on Station Road North. If you think about it, 50 on this site is a proportionately relatively small increase, given that the existing Wild Duck site, I think, must have got about 300 or 400 on there. You know, I ought to know that figure, but I don't.
I appreciate that. I think it's just a cumulative effect that people are considering. Thank you.
Councillor Mogford. Technical question.
Councillor Mogford.
Chairman, I think we are aware that there is a slight connection difficulties with members at the moment. I think sometimes the sound does go. So please do make us aware if you are having difficulty hearing, and we will see what we can do. But Councillor Mogford, if you'd like to go ahead with your technical question, please. Councillor Mogford. Okay.
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
thank you. With regard to the concern about the lighting on the site, would it not be simple just to say we will adopt dark skies policies? Then we don't have to get into too much detail, because you know the dark sky policies are very well established in various parts of the county. And particularly around coastal areas near the Broads, I think we have to be very careful about what we do with nighttime lighting. We can ruin it quite easily, ruin the skies, I mean, at night. The second question is, are we happy that we're not going to lose the touring caravan site at all? Because we don't have a lot. We have a lot of static sites, but we don't have many touring caravan sites. And I would be unhappy if we lost a touring caravan site at this stage. Thank you. That's all I need to ask.
That is an interesting point you make. I mean, I suppose it does beg the question whether we should condition the gramping condition so it says nothing can start until, including on the other sites. Having said that, it's always conceivable, isn't it, that they could, within their rights, partially implement this under planning law, they could partially implement the statics and not implement the rest of it. How would one compel them? I don't think legally one could under planning law. Now, the question about dark skies, it would be nice, wouldn't it, to have all detail with all applications up front. But of course, one is used to conditioning these things. And the trouble is, there is a balance to be struck here between thinking about what the police want with regard to making a site safe from a crime and disorder point of view, and thinking what the natural environment that people want with regard to not doing harm. And there is probably a middle course, but we won't know that until details have been submitted and appraised by those parties. And I think Dean's just made the point to me, and whispered in my ear, we do not have a dark skies policy per se. But even so, I'd still want details and consult with people, because, you know, they're the experts and they can tell us whether something is harmful or not.
Thank you. Chairman, I haven't got any other hands raised.
Okay, thanks, Sammy. So I invite the speakers for the item now to come forward, please.
Chairman, I can confirm we have Parish Councillor Botwright here to speak to the committee today in objection to the application. So, Mr. Botwright, if you'd like to, you've got 5 minutes. If you'd like to start now.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep. So you have 5 minutes, Mr. Botwright, and I'll just let you know when there's sort of 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. The issue of traffic was just mentioned. The two roads that access the Wild Duck site have single lanes because there's cars parked all along one side of these. It's a nightmare to try, when you face oncoming traffic, to find somewhere to pull in. And I just feel that the increase with 50 static caravans is going to really exacerbate the situation. From the highways point of view on a map, this probably looks perfectly adequate, but on the ground, I can assure you that it is not. The terms have been used on the application: proposed access, public vehicular access road, unsurfaced public right-of-way known as Marsh Lane. Marsh Lane is in fact a public footpath, FP10 on the definitive map, and a private right-of-way. So as you're aware, it's illegal to take a mechanically propelled vehicle on a public footpath. And it's also, the onus is on the applicant to get permission from the landowner to acquire lawful authority for the wild duck traffic to cross Marsh Lane from the owners of this lane. And this has also been confirmed by Norfolk County Council, and the private right-of-way is actually listed on the enclosure map and predates the railway line. So presumably that would take precedence. The county wildlife site, I mean, obviously we'll lose some of that, but I also believe there'll be further damage in addition to the area that they want to claim, resulting from the actual construction of the new golf tees, etc., and fairways. And I believe that that will irreparably damage, if not destroy, this extremely rare, ecologically valuable, threatened and diminishing heathland habitat, and will result in the loss of vegetation that actually supports the wildlife. The proposed gift of land to the village by Albert Gage of Caldecott Hall has been made to the parish council, but not as yet accepted by the parish council. The issue of the footpath across the county wildlife site, there is an application for this to be added to the definitive map, but there has been a footpath in existence there. The earliest ordnance survey map of 1860 clearly shows this public right-of-way and footpath at that time, in addition to the more convoluted footpath that exists there at this moment in time. I'm slightly concerned by the 177 square meters of Japanese knotweed on the proposed golf course, as any disturbance of that is likely to cause this to spread. It's horrendous to think about that. Any fencing of the site will also be a barrier to wildlife, and I'm concerned about that. And also the surrounding gorse is a significant fire hazard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Botright.
Thank you, Mr. Botright. Has any members got any questions for Mr. Botright, please? Please raise your hand.
A question from Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just asked Mr. Botright, has the owner who owns the lane, the private lane, or the footpath lane, has he objected to this? Or have they objected?
Mr. Botright.
Is he
that keeps mooting me every time I wanted to speak there. The owners of the land have not been approached by Bourne Leisure, therefore they've not given their permission, and it's my understanding that they have no intention of granting such permission. So the Bourne Leisure Wild Duck Complex would not have lawful authority to actually cross Marsh Lane as a private right of way. And as I say, it's been a private right of way since the enclosure map. So that's 200 years ago.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Councillor T. Wright.
Thanks, Sammy. Yes, Mr. Botright, you mentioned that as of yet the parish council hasn't accepted the gift of land. Is that something obviously would be under review if this application was to go forward?
We haven't as yet received any detail on this gift. It was up to 2 years ago when Mr. Gage appeared at the parish council meeting with this proposal, but he stated that it would be, the onus would be on the parish council, therefore, to manage the site and the costs implied in that. And also he would expect us to fence that wildlife site, which is from Marsh Lane to Sandy Lane, a considerable distance, and dependent on the type of fencing, if he actually stated what type he wants, could be up to £100,000, and obviously the parish council can't afford that.
So in actual fact, the actual cost of this may preclude you from accepting this land. So that offer of the land will be a negligible offer from the applicant.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chairman, I can confirm I have no more hands raised.
Okay, I thank you then, Mr. Botright, for your input. Thank you very much. I now invite any ward councillors to speak on this application, please.
Chairman, I can confirm I have, oh, sorry, Councillor Myers.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do have some concerns as a ward councillor about this application. I know highways haven't put any concerns in, but Station Road and the entrance to the Wild Duck and Station Road, for vehicles turning right coming down Station Road, there is a slight incline and quite a sharp bend on that. And as Councillor Botright said, there's an awful lot of traffic that still uses Station Road as the main entrance, plus there'll be traffic coming into the village down the 143, and with regards to access of Marsh Lane. So I do have some concerns with regarding of increased traffic through. I mean, obviously tourism within the villages is always to be welcome, but I think it has to be measured. So certainly the traffic issue is a concern, the loss of the wildlife habitat is a concern, and with regards to the deal done between Caldegot Hall and the Wild Duck, Bourne Leisure, who own it, you know, that's a private matter between them. So that's what I've got to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. So we now move over to the debate, and so over to the councillors. What do you think?
Chairman, I have no hands raised. Oh, Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson.
You're on mute, Councillor Williamson.
Do apologise. Thank you, Chairman. I've real concerns about the loss of the wildlife site, the old part of the old common, which exists there, obviously the heathland which exists with it. And listening to Mr. Botright, would appear that the offer of this piece of land has got conditions with it, which would take away the responsibility for fencing and the golf course from Caldecott Hall. So it seems to me this really seems a losing on the environmental side. It is original heathland. Lots of this area was covered in this kind of heathland and sandy area. And it does support a large range of life on there, of various animals and reptiles and so on. And it's also linked with the wildlife site further down towards the northwest. So I think it's really a great loss to this area to lose this particular one. I mean, the issue around the footpath and the right of way, I think is a significant one. There was a long inspector's report on this particular right of way, which went to an inspectorate and was found to be a right of way to allow public to go along there, but it was under private ownership. So there's a real issue. But I really feel that the actual wildlife issue would make me not want to support this in any way, the loss of habitat, because if Caldecott Hall came back and said yes, they would provide this extra hectare of land attached to the current common area, and will allow that to develop as a common area and allow the wildlife to inhabit that, then fine. But that hasn't been the condition. It would appear to me that from this, that Caldecott Hall want this both ways. They want both the sale of the land to Bourne Leisure, at the same time having a little responsibility for the wildlife site. So I would actually disagree with this particular reference and actually vote against it.
Councillor T. Wright.
Thanks, Sammy. Yes, I mean, like Councillor Williams has just said, there are concerns there about the wildlife, but one of my concerns also, obviously, after Mr. Botright has responded to my question about the land swap. Obviously, this has been going on for a couple of years now and doesn't seem to be any further forward. I can well see that if this cost comes prohibitive, then the land wouldn't be swapped over to the parish council. It'd be futile for the parish council to take it on board if that was going to cost a considerable sum of money. And I think something could have been sorted out before here, but my concern is for the question of the wildlife area, and of course the increase in the traffic, and also that said about the 50 extra static caravans that are going to be there. And I know the officer has said that we can put conditions on that, but in the past I know that has been concerned. There has been issues from caravan sites within that area where they become residential sites in the past. I'm sure that probably wouldn't happen here. But I have serious concerns over the highways issue and obviously the loss of wildlife site, and of course with the what would have been a plan and gain for the parish council to have a land swap for the community. And if that isn't going to happen, then I think this really negates some of the offers put forward. So I'm certainly minded not to support this application.
Chairman, I just want to check. I've lost Councillor Mogford's picture. Councillor Mogford, if I can just ask you to keep your camera on, please.
Chairman, can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah. Chairman, I just would like to remind members that the issues of land ownership shouldn't be taken into consideration. That isn't a material matter for the decision in front of you today.
Thank you.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you know, I think the land swap obviously is an issue that needs to be negotiated with the parties. You know, the rights of way that were talked about and the guy that hasn't been approached yet, again, that's got to be sorted out before any of this can take place. I think the mitigation for the wildlife is fair enough. I mean, you know, whether we could write a condition in to say that they've definitely got to provide that hectare of land that we're talking about. But I think we also have to look at the economic benefits of this. I mean, we're talking 50 static caravans. We're talking about a touring, you know, moving the touring caravans, which we don't want to lose. And I think Councillor Moulton made a good point there. So, you know, there'd be a lot of economic benefit to the borough for this. 50 static caravans. I mean, when I first moved to Yarmouth, I moved into a static caravan on Blue Sky Park, and that was for 12 months of the year. So, you know, that they're a good starting point for youngsters as well. So I wouldn't be restricting this particular site to 11 months. The other vans on this site are unrestricted. We have had problems in the past with sites in Borough Castle, but they've been resolved. So, you know, as long as all the conditions are adhered to, and perhaps we can get this hectare of land in, I would support it. I think the economic grounds of this override the rest of it. And as I say, the wildlife is extremely important, but if it can be mitigated, then fine.
Yeah, Chairman, I haven't got any other hands raised. Oh, sorry, I don't know whether the monitoring officer, I don't know whether you're muted, Caroline.
Caroline?
Can I come in here, please, Sammy? Chairman?
Yep.
Can you hear me on this?
Oh, Caroline's unmuted. Caroline, sorry, Dean, 2 seconds. Caroline, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to put to members that if they are minded to go for holiday use, I would suggest that they do have a period of non-use of at least 4 to 6 weeks. Because holiday letting is a type of residential use, and it is very easy if the only condition is for holiday use for a site to become residential. So if that's what members want to prevent, I would suggest that there is a time restriction also.
Thank you, Dean.
I was just going to sort of add to that really in terms of, obviously with close by Caldecott Hall, we've also got conditions on the holiday lodges there, which have been sort of upheld on appeal as well. So you know, it is fair enough to actually put the holiday sort of restriction on it. The close season period also sort of reinforces that. Government guidance is really that we sort of should have all year round sort of tourism, and they really rely upon the fact that you can actually put a condition on saying it should be for holiday use only. Chris mentioned earlier about the keeping sort of logs as well, of actually sort of when people sort of occupy it as well. And also it doesn't become their permanent home, which is what we've really got on the sort of the Caldecott Hall site as well there. In terms of the Marsh Lane there and the sort of right of way and whether or not they've actually got access across there, in terms of the one of the reasons this application was held up was initially because we'd actually requested that the applicants go back and actually sort of serve notice actually on the owner of the lane itself there. They couldn't actually sort of find that person, but they actually carried out the correct procedure by advertising in the newspaper as well. So they have actually followed the correct procedure in terms of notification under the Town and Country Planning Act from that point of view. So again, they have covered that angle. So and you'll find this is the case on many applications as well, whereby you know you don't actually have to own the land. You can serve notice on the owner. Whether or not you can actually then build it is another matter there. But in planning terms, there's nothing to stop us sort of carrying through and making a decision on the application, because it has been sort of carried out in accordance with legislation in terms of the advert in the local newspaper and what have you on there. In terms of, obviously, in terms of a guide really from members on this, you've sort of talked about the getting the hectare of open space or open land from the Caldecott Hall there and tying that up. Now we can go back to that, go back to them on this, and make sure that we do actually tie it up. And as Chris also said about sort of a condition on the on any planning approval, with the Grampian condition that this sort of piece of land has actually got to be sort of passed over or becomes part of the wildlife site there. And I would suggest that if we're going to go down a sort of a 11.1 there, we're also talking about sort of a section 106 agreement for the sort of mitigation for the habitats and stuff. We can actually sort of add to that really sort of a obligation regarding the wildlife site as well, or the 1 hectare there, if members are so minded to, which I think will then sort of tie that up. I do agree that I think that in terms of this talk about sort of £100,000 for the fence and what have you there, and also the full management, I can understand some sort of management agreement whereby the parish council would take that on, but I would certainly be reluctant to advise that the parish council in this instance actually takes it on, particularly with those caveats put forward by Caldecott Hall. So I'll leave it there, Chairman. Thank you.
Chairman, we have a question from Councillor Williamson.
It's just following up on what Dean's just said. I think it's really important that this 1 hectare of land is actually part of the common itself. It's adjacent to the common. It runs beside Sandy Lane, which is a highway, Norfolk County Council. And it runs around a sort of a dogleg round towards Marsh Lane. So I think it's really important that this hectare of land is part of the 11.1 if it's possible. And that I don't think there should be any conditions by Caldecott Hall about the parish council fencing it. It should be made part of the wildlife site. And I would support the application if that was the case, if we include that.
No other hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thanks. So nobody else wish to speak on the application?
No, no more hands raised, Chair.
Okay then. So with regards to Councillor Williamson, Dean, if we put those details down, you know, his concerns as a condition, would that all be all right? Yeah.
Yes, I think we can do that. Yeah.
Okay. Nobody else wish to discuss anything? No. Okay. So the recommendation is to approve the application. Have we got a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll propose it with the conditions.
Yeah, Chairman, should we just get just the officers to just kind of, or make it clear what we're approving with, including the conditions?
Yep, certainly. Yep.
Just so we can be clear.
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I think what you are asking for is for the 106 to actually include the 1 hectare being defined within the 106 agreement and maintained thereafter. I'm not. Am I clear? Or I'm unclear in my own mind as to whether you're asking for the parish to take over the responsibility for that, because I don't think that's necessarily something that's important to this. It's what's really significant is ensuring that we get a mitigated, you know, a strong form of mitigation for the creation of the fairway, acting as a loss of some wildlife habitat. And I think we can arrange that and get it agreed with the 106, if that's what members are asking for.
You're happy with that, Councillor Williamson? Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I think it has to be part of the current wildlife site. It has to be open and accessible as well. I would hate to see it as a fenced-off piece of Caldecott Hall just left to. It has to be an accessible site, as the current site is. That's what I'm asking for. Yeah. That the 1 hectare joins the current wildlife site, the bit which is left over, and is left as an open site.
There was no intention to close off the bits of the wildlife site where the golf course isn't going.
Fine, thank you.
Councillor T. Wright.
Yes, just in relation to the holiday side of things, the restriction. I think our monitoring officer suggested, you know, having 4 to 6 weeks on that. Is this going to form part of this as well? Because that's an important part for me.
Correct. I've already taken that into account. I did say earlier that if members were minded to impose a condition like that, just because the rest of the site doesn't have one, doesn't mean to say we can't ask for one here.
Okay, that's fine.
Councillor Mogford.
Thank you. Yes, can I just once again, because the sound was very bad when Chris was replying to my comments on lighting, can we please have that placed in as part of the condition too, that we have low, when I say low level lighting, I mean stuff that's sort of 3 or 4 feet high off the ground. You can do that very nicely on these type of parks. Otherwise we're going to get lamp standards and, you know, very bright lights, which is going to ruin the night sky for everybody. So I'm very keen that we have dark skies policies in force on this site. Okay.
That was my understanding, but of course the most significant thing with any luminaire is the shading of it with regard to dark skies.
Oh, sure, I agree with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else got anything just to clear up on with Dean or anything? Everybody's happy. We had a proposer, Councillor Wainwright. Have we got a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that.
Yeah. Who was that then? Sorry.
Councillor Carpenter.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So we have a proposer and a seconder. We'll now move to the vote and Sammy will do the roll call.
Lovely. So I will call you by your name if you could just say for or against, please. So Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Fairhead.
For.
Councillor Flaxman Taylor.
For.
Councillor Freeman.
For.
Councillor Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Hammond.
For.
Councillor Mogford.
For.
Councillor Myers.
Against.
Councillor Wainwright.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor T. Wright.
For.
Councillor B. Wright.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that was 11 for the approval and 1 against. So that is approved. Thank you. Obviously, sorry, Councillor Bird couldn't vote on that application because he joined during the application, so he will be able to partake in the next one. Thank you. So members, that is the end of the first application. Is everybody happy to continue straight on to the next one, or would anybody like a comfort break? Just raise your hand if you would like a comfort break or say yes or anything.
Carry on.
Lovely. Thank
Not
you.
for me.
Yeah, so we can carry on, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Sammy. So we move to item number 5, application land at Caldecott Hall, Beccles Road, Fritton, pages 26 to 42 of your agenda. And that is with Chris Green again. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll just apologise for a moment as I get the next slideshow up. I'm having assistance here. Okay, and then share screen, and then that one. Okay, and then double click that. Okay, if you slide show. Right.
Yeah, I've got that.
Okay. Oh, God, there we go. Right. Thank you. Can everyone hear me again?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Jolly good. Okay, so this is another caravan site application. So you're being treated to lots of caravan sites this evening. This is at Caldecott Hall itself, and the aerial view you can see there shows the somewhat extended access track down to the A143 from Caldecott Hall. It's actually a surfaced road. It's quite a broad surfaced road with sleeping policemen. The site itself is a former golf driving range, and did incorporate a couple of golf holes as well, apparently. The driving range, if I carry on, oh, hang on, first slide I was going to, or Dean suggested I put in, was something that shows the context of this with what you've just been discussing. So there's Wild Duck, the purple area, the new statics. There, sorry, that's the dark blue area, sorry. B, the bit of the golf course that becomes...
Chris, sorry, Chris, there aren't any colours. So you're talking colours, but
no, it's all right. I'm just saying B is the area that on the previous scheme.
All we can see is a red outlined aerial map. We can't see anything else.
Oh, sorry, you're not seeing the right one. Right. Oh, you're onto it. Okay.
Can you see it now?
Can you now see the?
We can now see a cold. Yeah, that's better.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
Thank you.
So A on here is the statics on Wild Duck. B, the new tours on Wild Duck, and C, the bit of county wildlife side. Please ignore these others because basically this comes off the map that shows all the planning applications. But this particular site I've ringed in red, and that is the proposal site for the new static caravans to go at Caldecott Hall. So moving on. There's another site plan there. That's the submitted site plan showing the access drive, a somewhat extensive or lengthy access drive, and an aerial view again. I think the reason why I left this one is it's a good aerial shot that shows the extensive and thick nature of the tree belt between this site and the open area of the Broads. Technically, the Broads area actually starts at the southern edge of the tree belt, or the northern edge of this site. Running along the southern edge of the site is the Angles Way, which I was surprised to learn is not a footpath or public right of way. It's actually a highway, a classified highway, or sorry, unclassified highway, with technically it has a 60 mile per hour speed limit on it, but I think anyone would be highly challenged to try and drive it at 60 miles per hour. So moving on, this is the layout plan that they've shown. Now, what we all have running over the top of the this particular site is power lines, and the site layout is therefore predicated to have large areas of landscaping under the power lines so as to maintain the covenanted rights for the power operator to gain access to the power lines should they need to. Apart from that, it is laid out very much like a caravan park with licensed arrangements as to distance of separation between the individual static caravans. There is an area, however, down towards, I think I'm showing it, can you see my mouse moving? Hopefully you can, which is an area of wild meadow. The reason for that is that there is a property just off in fact, it's just down here, a residential property that needs to be protected to some extent from the caravan site. Not necessarily because its amenity is harmed in a classic planning sense, but because one has to be to some extent concerned about the degree of change that takes place to someone's freedom from noise disturbance. And obviously there will be some degree over what is at the moment a very quiet situation. This is the policy constraints map that the applicant has put in. The cross-hatched areas show the extent of the tourism facility under the current policies. As I said earlier, the new emergent policies, which we can't lend very much weight to, show a somewhat more constrained area around Caldecott Hall itself as being tourist accommodation, and then the rest of the site as not being having a designation even though it would remain a tourism facility, it wouldn't be designated in the plan as such. There's no, the policies are slightly different, but the site is relatively well related to the hall in terms of new tourism accommodation. There is a slight reason for saying this is not such a good idea on this site, and that is that the policy talks about small scale, and I don't think one can pretend this is necessarily small scale. So I'd say it's well related. It's not really small scale, but the tourism facility that you currently have at Caldecott Hall offers you quite a few things, doesn't it? You've got a health club, you've got dining facilities in the golf clubhouse, you've got drinking facilities in the golf clubhouse, and of course you've got the ability to play golf on the site. So there's quite a few reasons why one might go and stay there and not necessarily travel out considerably, or one would travel along the various public rights of way in the area to on bicycles or by foot. And if I can just click onto the next one, and it's not doing it. Why is it not doing it? Ah, there we go. I did bring up the Norfolk County Council bus stop plan, and as one can see, there is relatively good links to other bus stops. Obviously, the shortest one is the red dotted link that runs along Angles Way and then down the connecting right of way to the front of the garden centre. So that's mainly off-road, or at least off highways that are heavily used. And then the other route, the blue dotted line, is along the Angles Way back into Belton. And they've supplied me with an ecology map which shows where there are other county wildlife sites, including the one we've just been talking about, the Belton Common one, which you can see arrowed there, and how they relate to this particular bit of land. And again, why did I put that one in? Ah, this shows some plan sections. You'll see the section A, B, and C marked on the map running through Foxborough, the nearest residence. And the reason for putting this in is that there are some bunkers on the site at the moment, and they intend to regrade them to create bunds. And you will see on that, hopefully if you look reasonably closely, you can see that in light green they've shown the bunds near the caravans. And my environmental health officer here says, yes, they should do the job because they are quite close to the source of noise and will act to deflect it very effectively and help to maintain Foxborough's amenity. I haven't mentioned other nearby properties because they're all further away than Foxborough. So if you can actually deal with the Foxborough case, you've dealt with them all effectively. So some slides. This is Angles Way. The track coming in from the right-hand side of the picture there leads into the proposal site. And there is a view from the old driving range off down where one would have been hitting one's golf balls into this proposal site. And that is from Caldecott Hall itself, looking across the shed is behind the shed runs Angles Way. This is looking across more or less the point where one goes into the new static site. And again, showing the driving range shelter as it has its currently decrepit state. Again, another view along Angles Way in the opposite direction. You'll notice that it is a very informally surfaced route. I would challenge anyone to drive that at 60 miles per hour. And that's the driving range looking back towards Caldecott Hall. And again, a slightly closer view of the driving range. And I thought I'd put in a few slides showing some of the ancillary holiday facilities. The barn contains, I believe, a beauty therapy place, a spa, should I say. And I think the pool is in there as well. And then in the background, you can see, and again in this slide, the various two-story holiday chalets that have been erected. And, obviously these look more considerably more livable in all year round than the proposed static caravans would be. And again, another one. So, key points, current and emergent policy. It's really very similar to the previous one, where the current tourism policies are relatively supportive because it's within the tourism facility enclosure. The emergent policies perhaps slightly less so because they no longer designate tourism facilities. There was an earlier hotel permission on this site for a 100-bed hotel, which is obviously somewhat smaller than 157 static caravan proposal, but it does establish a particular quantum of development which was seen as acceptable when it was permitted in 2009, I think it was. I'll have to check that from the report, but it is in the report when it was permitted. 1997, oh my goodness, I've got that wrong then. Thank you, Dean. Traffic generation, county highways are supportive again of this. I think that's because the point of connection onto the A143 isn't bad. It's got a right-hand turn lane. And certainly when I went there, the amount of traffic that was being generated by Caldecott Hall and the golfing activity didn't seem particularly high to me. Angles Way, obviously the character of that will be affected to some extent. And so I have got some concerns about how you go about surfacing that to ensure that you don't break the surface up with vehicular traffic going over it, but at the same time you keep it relatively informal. Access to the local bus stops, I've dealt with that. Landscape impact, it has very low landscape impact because of the enormously dense and mature tree belt around it. And arguably its former use as a golf driving range had some landscape impact. I think Broad's Authority's response was very much about the cumulative impact of large numbers of new tourism facilities in the area. So that has to be weighed against the benefits of promoting tourism. In itself, because of the fact that the facilities are on the Caldecott Hall site that are supportive of this new proposal, it isn't really introducing a lot of noise and disturbance into the area of itself, other than perhaps people having the occasional outdoor barbecue. Impact on neighbours, bunds and separation, I've dealt with that. Electromagnetic radiation and power lines, that is dealt with in the report. I did go onto the government website to see what their take on that was, and essentially it's that the World Health Organization and others don't believe that the impacts are significant, and certainly considerably less significant than air pollution. Importance of the tourism industry, that's a given. You know, you've got your borough plan going forward, and quality of the offer. It's not a particularly high quality offer, that has to be said. It is what it is. It's for static caravans. They will be laid out in accordance with the requirements of a caravan site license, and so they tend to be fairly closely spaced. At least we know that we have fairly large areas of planting within the site that have to be retained because of the nature of the covenants and the need for the wild meadow to assist with providing a degree of buffering to the property in the area. So it does have some mitigation of that design aspect. So recommendation is to approve with regard, subject to the 106 for the recreational activity mitigation and the conditions with regard to the access across Angles Way, further details of landscaping and wildlife mitigation, lighting, of course, security fencing, again, electric vehicle charging points, and the archaeological investigation. Then we do have a closed winter period suggested in this particular case of a month. Partly we went for a month because we believe that that's longer than most people would, if they were living there, would want to go away on holiday for. So it does act to dissuade, but we'd also want to have the keeping of a register that could be inspected at any time. And of course, again, I come back to that condition to limit the number of caravans so it doesn't creep upwards within the site license. And they have shown a package sewage treatment plant. They're not trying to go into the existing system. It is quite some distance away. Now packaged sewage treatment plants can be extremely effective, and they will discharge fluid to the environment that has been treated, providing you ensure that nobody puts anything into it that's going to harm the process. And many years ago, I had a case of a site where we had a packaged sewage treatment plant, and grease and oil was getting in from cooking process, or at least oil was getting in from cooking process. The grease wasn't, because they put a trap on that was capable of dealing with the grease, but not with oil. And it was one of the worst smells I've ever smelled. But anyway, that's by the way. We'd want some further details to make sure that that was taken care of. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Any councillors got any technical questions, please? They raise their hand.
Councillor Williamson.
So I wonder, have Coldicott Hall indicated they're going to replace the driving range and the other 5 halls elsewhere on site of the 9-hall course?
No, they're not. They're not intending to do that at all. No, I don't think they require a golf driving range anymore. That seems to be the philosophy here. They have the 18-hole course. That's it.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question with regards to the facilities on site. Access to the barn area in the golf range with the bar and everything, have they indicated that it'll be open to anybody who attends on the site, or will it be membership required only? And also the gym and swimming pool facilities, as far as I'm aware, you have to become a member of that. Has there been any indication of whether that's going to be left open, or will that be an additional membership requirement for anybody who occupies the caravans?
They haven't indicated anything. The great thing is you've got Margaret Shelley here, who will speak on behalf of the applicant, who can clarify that. My understanding was from George Boland, one of our planning officers. I actually asked him a few questions about golf because he plays there, and he says, well, you don't have to be a member to play there. So I'm guessing that it's a relatively open facility, but I'm sure Margaret can answer. And if we thought that we needed to have that to make it acceptable, because I agree with you, what you're looking for here is that people can make use of that to justify putting these things here, because otherwise they are quite a long way away from any other facilities. So yes, that's something to ask her, I think, when she speaks.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have no other hands raised.
Okay then. So now I invite.
Sammy,
sorry.
I have my hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Councillor
Sorry.
Wainwright. Sorry.
Just on the bar and the swimming pool. I mean, the swimming pool at Coldicott Hall, you'll be lucky with the social distancing. You'll be lucky to get about 10 people in there, I should think. It's very small, but they're operated now by Sentinel Leisure Trust, and their whole business case is based on membership. So I would imagine that it would be for you'd have to join to use it, but it's very small. I mean, it's not like the Phoenix. It's a very, very small pool.
Can I come back on that briefly? I think the thing about Tingdean is that their modus operandi is to sell these static caravans as holiday homes to individuals who then spend holiday time in them or sublet them out to other people. So it would be perfectly possible, as there's an ongoing relationship with the caravan, let's say, on part of the people who stay there, for them to become members of that. But let's see what Margaret has to say on that when she speaks.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else wish to ask a technical question?
No, Chairman, no more hands raised.
Okay then, so at this point I invite Margaret Shelley, the agent for the applicant, to come forward to speak, please.
Good afternoon. I'll answer the questions that have been raised as well as part of the presentation I'll make.
Yeah,
the application...
Sorry, Margaret, you have 5 minutes and I'll just let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. The application site occupies the former golf driving range and a part of one of the 2 18-hole golf courses at Coldicott Hall. The site is 8 hectares. It is well screened by existing mature trees to the north and the west. To the south is the Angles Way long distance path and Red Wings Equestrian Centre. And to the east is the golf course and the Coldicott Hall complex. The site is well screened, well contained, with little landscape impact on the surrounding area. The proposed 157 static holiday caravans will, as Chris says, be privately owned. Tingdean Holiday Parks operates a number of holiday caravan parks in Norfolk and Suffolk, as well as in the rest of the UK. They operate on leases to individual owners. And as part of those leases, there is a clause which says that there should be no main residence, and that is enforceable by Tingdean holiday parks. The layout has been prepared in accordance with the Caravan Sites Act model standards. So there's 4.2 hectares of the 8-hectare site will be developed, which is 53.7% of the gross site area. The remainder of the 8-hectare site is occupied by treed areas and the exclusion area associated with the overhead power lines. The caravans will occupy 3 hectares of the site, and there'll be 1.2 hectares being given to open space. The scheme is quite a low density development because of the sort of large amounts of open space, and it's 36.6 caravans per hectare when compared with the Caravan Site Act, which allows a density of up to 60 caravans per hectare. So as part of the 1.2 hectares of open space, which is proposed, there will be 2 equipped play areas, formal open grassed space for games, a fenced dog exercise area, dog walking route, and 0.8 hectares of semi-natural open space, which does include the wildflower meadow in the southwest part of the site that Chris has explained. And within that, we will be providing buffers between the caravans and the adjoining dwelling. So there have been habitat regulations assessments, shadow habitat regulation assessment, ecology assessment, landscape assessments undertaken. As part of that consultation with Natural England, they've raised no objections to the proposal. We will be providing additional landscaping and tree planting, which will be carried out in accordance with the ecology and tree reports that have been undertaken. Lighting has been obviously raised as an issue. There was high intensity, high level lighting associated with the driving range. That will obviously be removed as the driving range is being removed. All lighting will be low level and low intensity lighting, and will form part of the detailed landscaping scheme, which will be submitted if permission is approved. The owners of the caravans will be able to take advantage of subsidised memberships of the golf course, the spa, the swimming, the gym and the leisure facilities at Caldicott Hall. And visitors or holiday makers staying in there will also be able to take advantage of membership arrangements whilst they are staying on the site. So they will be able to use all the facilities in the barn works and the golf course. So there's restaurant facilities, they will be able to use those, and bar facilities as well. Access, as you've heard, is via the private access road to Caldicott Hall. The splayed entrance onto the A143 has a right turning lane. It is, Norfolk County Council have no objections to that. We will be providing a new private treatment plant, and
Margaret, you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
And all surface water will be attenuated on site. It's a proposal which will provide additional holiday accommodation and attract visitors to Great Yarmouth, strengthening the tourism accommodation economy of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret, for your report. Any councillors got any technical questions, please?
Councillor Wright, Wright, sorry.
It's just a very quick one. Just in regards to the facilities on that, are those facilities also open to members of the public, or is it specifically for people who actually just use the site?
I think the facilities are open currently to the member of the public, and will continue to be open to members of the public, as well as those in the holiday caravans.
And is that by membership, or is it just as and when people come?
I think both systems operate.
Right. I don't suppose you have any numbers of people that currently use the facility. Well, I know they don't use them at the moment, but I don't suppose you've got any numbers of members already, no?
No, I don't have precise numbers. That's operated by Sentinel Leisure. What I do know is that golf membership over the past years have reduced quite considerably. So this proposal with a lot of people staying in the caravans will help support the golf course and the use of the golf course. So it's a sort of symbiotic relationship.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Yes, just a quick question. It was touched on quite lightly by Councillor Wainwright. What is the capacity of the pool and the gym complex that you have there? Because from my recollection is it's not a particularly large area.
Sorry, you broke up during that. Did you ask about the capacity of Caldecott Hall complex, Barn Works?
No, the gym and swimming pool complex area, change of room facilities and that. Well, what is the maximum capacity for that?
Sorry, I don't have maximum numbers. To my knowledge from Sentinel, it's reasonably well used, but not over capacity. So there is, quite capacity for other people to use it, staying on the holiday park.
Councillor Bird.
Yes, thank you. Can I just ask, are these units that they are for obviously holiday caravans, but are they able to be bought or are they leased?
So the caravans are not bought from, the caravans are owner caravans, so they can move their own caravans onto the plots which they would lease from Tingdean. Tingdean, as a company, does make caravans, and so if somebody wanted to buy a caravan from Tingdean, then it could be put onto a plot that they would lease from Tingdean holiday parks. But
so the standard of caravan will have to be maintained over a period of 5 years change, or is it longer, or they can keep them as long as they want?
They can keep them as long as they want, but obviously Tingdean ensure that all caravans on their site are well maintained. So it doesn't preclude people having a slightly older caravan and having it on the site. I know Bourne Leisure requires people to replace their caravans and buy new caravans from them every 10 years. So people who have a well-maintained caravan may want to keep it, and they would be able to put it onto this site at Caldecott Hall. So it doesn't operate on a you must buy a caravan from us and only keep it for a certain period of time before we require it to be replaced and a new one bought from us.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have no other hands raised.
Thank you, Sammy. Thanks, Margaret, for your detailed report. I now invite is there any other members of the public, Sammy, at all?
Chairman, I can confirm there are no other speakers for this item.
Okay, thanks then, Sammy. So we now move to the debate and what the councillors think of this application. Sorry, is there a ward councillor wish to speak? Councillor Myers? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've just got some concerns with regard to the on-site facilities provided. I used to use the gym and the swimming pool there, and as Councillor Wainwright said, it's not very big. And 157 caravans, if only one person used it, I think there's sufficient capacity within the on-site facility of that gym and swimming pool area to accommodate 157 people, which would then suggest, which would encourage people to go further afield for their holiday, where are they going to go? So that would be traffic issues, Sandy Lane issues, and yes, it might be wonderful for Great Yarmouth, but they've got to travel through Bradwell or down the new road or through Galston to get there. I'm just concerned about the on-site facilities to meet the needs of people who wish to go there on holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Sorry, I missed you then. So we now move to the debate. Sorry?
Councillor Wainwright, sorry.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the facilities on site have anything to do with it, really. I mean, people will make the choice. They will either buy or they won't buy, or they'll lease or they won't lease. The facilities aren't that big. I mean, I've used the bar, I went into the swimming pool once, I've used the golf course, the driving range. And, you know, they're not particularly big, but people will make the decision whether they're going to buy or not. But I'd like to see the people coming down there and actually going into places like Galston and Yarmouth, spending some money. You know, I don't like to see all this money spent on site. You know, I would hope that they would travel. So that's probably, in my view, it's probably quite a good thing that on some of the big camps in Yarmouth. We need the money in the local economy for the restaurants, the bars, the cafes, and everything associated with the shops, the retail, especially at this time. And basically, I would imagine that people are pleased to have small facilities because with social distancing, you can't really operate them at a profit anyway. So, as I say, I don't think it's got any relevance whatsoever to the application, in my opinion.
Anyone else wish to speak in the debate?
Chairman, I've got no more hands raised.
Okay then, so the application is recommended for approval. Have we got a proposer first, please?
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Have we got a seconder, please? Councillor Hammond? Yeah. So at this point, Sammy will do the roll call again.
Thank you, Chairman. So Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Bird. Councillor Bird.
Sorry, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Fairhead.
4.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
4.
Councillor Freeman.
4.
Councillor Carpenter.
4.
Councillor Hammond.
4.
Councillor Mogford.
4.
Councillor Myers.
Against because of the increased traffic down the 143.
Thank you. Councillor Wainwright.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor T. Wright.
4.
And Councillor B. Wright.
4.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm it was 12 for approval of the recommendation and 1 against. Thank you. So that is approved. Yeah. So we're now going to move on to the next application, members. I just wanted to check if anybody wanted a quick comfort break before we start the next one. I know we've been on the line quite a long time now, so I just wanted to check if anybody wanted a break or wanted to continue. Councillor Wright?
Can I just make a cup of tea?
As long as you make everybody one.
We can have, if the chairman's happy, we can have a quick sort of couple of minutes comfort break.
Let's carry on. Let's carry on.
I'll only be 2 minutes. The
live stream will continue, so I just ask members to all stay muted if possible, please. Thank you.
I'm back.
Right, I think we are all back. Oh, no, we're just waiting for Councillor Mogford. Chairman, I think we are all back now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13. Yes, we've got 13 members back, and we've got our planning officer here. I think our monitoring officer is there, although her camera is turned off at the moment, but I believe she's there. So I think we are good to go.
Okay then, thanks, Sammy. We move to item number 6 then, which is Ivy House, Beccles Road, Fritton, and that's pages 43 to 59 of your agenda. And this time, as Rob Tate to present this. So away you go, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sammy. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep, good. Just get the...
Sorry, Rob, just Councillor Bird, could you just, I can't see, that's better. Thank you. Sorry, Rob, carry on.
Right. Okay, so just before I get going, there are a couple of things that have changed since the committee report was written. The expiry date is now the 17th of July. That's been extended. Section 5 in the committee report on page 48, that references the policies from the first draft of the emerging local plan. Obviously, members will be aware that that has now been superseded by the final draft and therefore are no longer relevant. And then at point 9.25 on page 57, it says that the housing land supply is 3.74 years. This is a mistake and it is actually 3.42. So just to give you an idea of where the site is and its surroundings, this is the A143 running along here. So up here is Caldecott Hall and Red Wings, where Chris's applications were earlier. Ivy House is this house here, and the application is in the side garden of Ivy House. There has been limited development recently in Fritton, with most of it along the New Road area up here. It's just off the map. And along Church Lane, about 300 metres from the application site, is the Grade 2-star listed church. And then here are Angle Cottages and some more recent development as well. So this is the proposal. It's for a terrace of 3 dwellings. There's car parking, 2 per dwelling to the east of the site, as well as some planting along here. The site measures roughly 30 metres across the frontage and extends 35 metres back, where it narrows to 9 metres at the rear. I'll just point out here is the lay-by. Quite a few of the objectors note the lay-by would cause problems with their own car parking situation. This is outside the red line area and is not subject to the application. There's a 1.5 metre gap here between the application site and the boundary, or the new boundary of Ivy House, and then there's an additional metre to the wall of Ivy House here. The application site is partially outside of the development limits. I'll just zoom in so you can get a better understanding. So here are Angle Cottages and the new developments, and the development limit cut across the site. So 6 metres roughly of the frontage to the west of the site is inside the development limits, roughly this strip where the hand is now, and then the boundary of the site is just to this side of the trees. Although, as you can see, it's not outside the visual limits of the settlement, with the settlement continuing onwards to the east. And if I just zoom out a bit further, you can see that the listed church is along here as well. So move on to the elevations. The total height of the dwellings is 8.85 metres and the eaves height is 5.3. The porch ridge height is 3.3 metres and the eaves is 2.3 metres. The application form states that it will be of brick and tile constructions, although the full details of materials have not been submitted and these can be conditioned later on. If we run through the floor plans, the floor area of each dwelling, the gross floor area is 80.5 square metres, although the total usable area, so that's excluding the staircases and so on, is 72.2 square metres, and this is above the minimum requirements outlined in the national guidance. Upstairs there are 2 bedrooms, a double bedroom and a single bedroom. Both of these also are above the minimum floor area requirement of the double bedroom being 13 square metres and the single bedroom being 9 square metres, excluding the storage areas. Got some site photos here as well, just to give you a better understanding of where the site is. So here we're standing to the northern side of the Beccles Road. Ivy House is to the right of us here. The village sign is on the triangular piece of grass here, and Angle Cottages are just off the photo to the left. The site will be across here where the hedgerow and the wall is. Looking into the village of Fritton, just to give you an idea of the types of housing and dwellings that are around, it's quite a mixed bag really. There are some chalet style properties, some terraces as well, if we look further down as well. Church Lane itself goes down to Fritton Lake, although if we zoom in a bit, you'll be able to see on that sign, it actually says no access to Fritton Lake down Church Lane, and you have to use the next junction. This avoids obviously the problem of traffic going down Church Lane and the issue surrounding the parking at Angle Cottages. Again, these are just some more photos showing you the types of dwellings that are around and down to Angle Cottages as well. There are a few trees on the site, as we'll see in the report later on. The Agricultural Officer described these as low amenity. If I just go back to this screen, you'll see there's a tall silver birch, and I can't quite make out what kind of tree this is, but the owner of Ivy House has confirmed that these are the other side of the boundary and are outside of the red line area. Again, this one's looking down Church Lane at the parking lay-by, and then Angle Cottages to the left here. There are a terrace of 5 as well. This is looking, so you can just about see the application site here. This part is outside the red line area. This is the part where the tall silver birch tree is. And then looking the other way, you can just about see the church in the distance there, about 300 metres away. These are Angle Cottages again. And now if we move on, there are some photos of the site itself. So this one gives you an idea of how much land will be left to the rear of Ivy House. So this is Ivy House on the left, and the application site is this area running along here where the laser pointer is. If we look from the other side, this is Ivy House, and it gives you an idea as well how much garden will be left. The site itself is quite grown up with a number of trees and grass growing high. It's a greenhouse here as well. So this is looking towards Ivy House. You can see there's a fallen tree here. This is looking eastward, so there's that silver birch tree I was on about. This is looking across the site from the boundary with Ivy House. The frontage is along here with that greenhouse again. This is the front of the site again. Similar photos. This is then looking towards the rear of the site. You can see that it narrows into this 9-metre section here. There are some trees here that are a bit overgrown as well. And then this is the final photo just to give you an idea of how it narrows, so about 9 metres at the rear of the site. If we move back onto the committee report itself, the Parish Council have objected to the application. They've stated that the development is too big in size on such a small plot. The access is already limited, drainage would be an issue, major concerns with the lack of car parking, concerns that the development might inhibit access to the church, that the proposed design of the dwellings is not in keeping with the other dwellings in the village. 4 neighbours of objection have been received from neighbours, and these are: the church name is narrow. If I just go back to give you an idea of how the road was, again, limited access, it will impact the privacy of Angle cottages here. Removal of bushes and trees would impact on wildlife. It would spoil the view of the people who live in Angle cottages. Where the visitors park, would they be forced to park on the triangular piece of grass here? Increase in traffic, potential damage to the hedge and verge of one Angle cottage. So you can just about see that on this photo. If we zoom in, the objector was concerned about any damage to this verge here. This could be the start of other developments and gardens, and the design was not in keeping with the village. Now, this application was subject to pre-app from the County Highways Department. They have raised no objections subject to the conditions that are listed in your report. It does say in the committee report that the response from Anglian Water is attached to your committee report. It is not, but I have included it at the end here if members want to read. They've given their standard advice saying that the application site fell under their limits for them to comment on the application. There we go. Haven't gone past it this time. The assistant grounds manager and arboricultural officer said that he doesn't object to the development in terms of trees. There are a number of trees on site, but these are mainly low amenity trees with low life expectancy. NETI, so the county ecologists, have come back saying that they don't object on ecology grounds, but they do recommend that we mitigate any ecology loss through swallow nest boxes, which can be installed on the sheltered sides of the accommodation or the dwelling, so this is either north, west or east. And they've also recommended hedgehog holes, which the members will be aware have been on several other approvals recently. Conservation have also been consulted because of the listed church that were nearby. The conservation officer said that he feels that the design is typical vernacular style for the area and therefore is appropriate, but the devil is in the details. And like I mentioned earlier, the materials haven't been specified, and the conservation officer recommended a good quality softwood brick and a good clay pan tile and timber windows. I would note that the conservation officer also said that he feels that the site is a bit pinched for such a development and would recommend reducing it to 2 windows and bringing it forward. But obviously, by the development being set back, it reduces any impact on Angle cottages up here, and it also allows the turning area for the cars as well. Members will be familiar with the policies at 3, 4, 6, 7 and 8 in the report. And obviously, as we don't have a 5-year land supply, the presumption of sustainable development and the tilted balance is also included as well. Point 7 also talks about the shadow habitat regulations assessment, and I will come on to talk about that in a second. So Fritton is a secondary village, and these are expected to absorb 5% of the borough's housing need. As discussed earlier, most of the site is outside the development limit. If we go back to this slide, and you can see, although it does not extend beyond the visual limit of the settlement, and it is considered that it is an appropriate addition to dwellings at the outer edge of the settlement. The proposal is for 3 2-bedroom dwellings, which there is a need for in this area. They are a similar form and density to Angle cottages. If I just get my laser pointer back up over here, and therefore are quite well keeping with the character of the area. The subdivision of the plot is in line with Sabre policy HOU 17 from the borough-wide local plan, which obviously seeks to ensure that the density of subdivided plot is appropriate for the area. If we move back onto the design, as we can see from the photos, there are a variety of designs in the area, and it's not considered that the dwellings would be out of character with the area as a whole. And as I mentioned a second ago, the conservation officer did not object. The application site is located within the green indicative habitat impact zone, and therefore the shadow HRA has been submitted. This is deemed that it is okay. On top of this, the required £330 for the habitat mitigation and monitoring strategy payment has also been received. As I mentioned earlier, NETI have no objections on ecology grounds and recommended those conditions to mitigate any habitat loss. We move back onto parking. This was raised by a number of objectors. This is obviously outside that red-lined area, and the parking provision is in line with county standards, with 2 parking spaces provided per dwelling, and therefore refusal on highways grounds would likely be undefendable. As I mentioned a second ago, as the dwellings are sat far back, it helps to reduce any impact on angle cottages. It's 40 metres from the western elevation of angle cottages to the front of the site, and then an extra 9.5 metres to the front elevation of the proposed dwellings. Members will be well aware that we do not have a published 5-year land supply, and therefore the tilted balance should be applied. Therefore, if we move on to the recommendation on page 57, it is recommended to approve the application subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Okay, Rob, yep. Okay. Have any members got any technical questions for Rob, please? Raise the hand.
Yep, we have a question from Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Rob, could you just, when we're going back, the rear of property number 3, how close to that is the boundary on the left-hand side looking down?
Property number 3.
Yes.
Towards Ivy House, is it then? Are you on about?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so it's 1.5 metres at the front of the plot, and then it narrows down to 1 metre at the rear of plot 3 to the boundary of Ivy House.
Okay, and looking to the right of the property where there's car parking facilities provision for 4 vehicles, I note that they're stacked. So is there provision for, say, the vehicles at the back? They can't get out until the vehicles at the front are moved, can they?
No, there is turning provision in front of plots 2 and 3, so they could pull out in front of there to allow the other car to come back and then reverse back into the space.
So, but they would still have to move, wouldn't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yep, Councillor T. Wright.
Thanks, Sally. Yeah, just in relation to the actual construction, I can see that there's going to be difficulties with the construction, access to the site to start with. Is there any proposal for the road, the Church Lane, to be closed off at any time? Because I can imagine there's going to be quite a bit of disturbance there.
No, there hasn't been. But if you, there is also an access from, I'm not showing my screen, am I? If you, the next junction along also then leads onto the Beccles Road. So there is another way for the people who live at Angle Cottages to be able to then access the A143.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Councillor Hammond.
Yes, looking at the site plan, there appears to be an area to the left-hand side in front of plot 3 that could be allocated as guest parking. Has that been suggested to the applicant to alleviate any guest cars being on the road?
No, we haven't had that discussion, but there is obviously space in front of there where guests could be able to park.
Could that be conditioned?
Yeah, we'd have to go to highways and double check on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Chairman, I can confirm I have no more hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I now invite Mr. Jerry Stone, the agent for the applicant to come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. You have 3 minutes, and I'll advise you when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you very much. Can I thank Rob very much for a very comprehensive report, and I will be brief. Firstly, we carried out a considerable discussion with Highways before we came in with this application, and that was the agreed layout that the Highways officer agreed to. In reference to the lay-by, there is good signage in the lay-by saying that it is only for parking for the people who live in those cottages. So I don't think, it is well signposted, and most people are quite polite and will respect that. It's intended that this will be a timber framed off-site construction in reference to your worries about disruption by people. So the intention is that it will be an off-site construction, and then what happens is the actual panels and the frame for the properties get delivered to site. So erection is relatively quick and minimises disruption to people in the area. And the last observation I would say is you can clearly see that the garden for Ivy House is absolutely enormous, and the applicant is clearly struggling to maintain it, and people don't like big gardens these days. We've tried to bring forward a design of houses that is in short supply in villages. They are in short supply. We would also be quite happy to agree to the swallow nest boxes and the hedgerow, whatever they are, but we will be happy to put those in place. I think there would be, I think you're right in what you're saying about people will informally park at the front. It will be laid out as a driveway because it's a turning area. I don't really, with the Highways not objecting, I wouldn't like to say it was laid out for parking because that would encourage people to have cars. And so that's it really. If you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any councillors got any technical questions for Mr. Stone, please?
Councillor Williamson.
Yes, I'll ask Mr. Stone what the external finish of the houses will be, because the conservation officer did request that they were the red brick, soft red brick finish, but obviously with a prefabricated off-site, what will the external finish to the walls be?
Yeah, they'll still be brick in exactly the same way as a normal.
Okay.
They're just a sit panel that sits inside, and then you brick up the outside, and we will be.
Okay, thank you. Just confirming.
Thank you. Anybody else, please?
Chairman, I have no other hands raised.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mr. Stone. Thank you. I now move to ask if there's a ward councillor who wishes to speak on this application, please.
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we now move to the debate. So over to you. What do you think of the application, please?
Chairman, I have no hands raised. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wainwright.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I mean, I think it's a good application. I mean, two-bedroom terraces are desperately needed in the borough, certainly in places like Fritton as well. So I would fully support the application, and I'd move it as it is.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor T. Wright.
Yeah, it does look a bit cramped, but quite clearly what Councillor Wainwright has said is correct, that this size of house, certainly in the village environment, is a necessity, I think, and certainly I would support this application. My only concern was the construction, but I think if it's coming in a pack form, then I think that'll probably alleviate a lot of those particular problems. And of course, the parking has already been addressed, so I'll second this.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on that?
Councillor Williamson.
Oh, just to follow up on what people have said, I think these kind of houses are desperately needed in the villages. This shape of house, size of house, especially in areas like Fritton and St Olaf's, in that area. My main concerns around the parking and the construction of the buildings, the finish. But I'm quite happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Chairman, I have no further hands raised.
So we have a proposer of Councillor Wainwright and a seconder of Councillor Wright. So Sammy at this point will do the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Bird.
For.
Councillor Fairhead.
For.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
For.
Councillor Freeman.
For.
Councillor Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Hammond.
For.
Councillor Mogford.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Wainwright.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor T. Wright.
For.
And Councillor B. Wright.
For.
Chairman, I can confirm that it was a unanimous decision for approval of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. We now move to item number 5, which are the delegated decisions between the 1st of June 2020 and the 31st of June 2020 on pages 60 to 67. If you just members that are asked to note these decisions. Anyone wish to say anything about those or anything? No. Item numbers, sorry.
Sorry, Chairman, if there's no objections, they can be confirmed on assent. So there's no hands raised, so that's fine.
Yep,
Thank you.
okay. Item number 6, I don't understand there's any other business, unless Dean has got anything to say. No? No? Okay then. Okay, thanks everybody. So the meeting is closed. Thanks very much, and thanks everyone
Thank
for
you and
attending.
good night.
Lovely. If I can just ask members just to stay put while I just stop the live stream, that would be really appreciated. Thank you.